All right. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't talk about, which is how to actually make money as a professional artist. It'll be 10 years of being a full-time artist, which is such an honor, and I'm just so thankful for the journey. If you are wondering if being a full-time artist is a lucrative career or if it's possible to make an income doing what you love, then continue listening as I share my path of hitting six figures as a full-time artist and how much I made the previous years up until that point. I also wanted to talk about what I've prioritized during that season of my business, because the first 5 years has been definitely different than the second 5 years, and I really feel like that's important to talk about because not every year will look the same. Not every year will be about growing or getting bigger or hitting more milestones. You know, sometimes it's about slowing down and finding life-work balance and things like that. So there's a good mix of both in there. I would really say it's split down the middle for me looking back at the last 10 years. So let's just dive right into it. For context, I quit my day jobs in June of 2015 to pursue art full-time. I did everything at the time, any opportunities that came my way. I did in-person pop-up shops, online sales. I had an Etsy shop where I sold cards and prints. I also approached some shops, some retail shops, and asked if they can sell my cards and prints. So I did some wholesale orders of cards, prints, tote bags. I also did a few commission paintings for wedding invitations or Christmas cards, logos. So in those 6 months, I made a little under $5,000, which I was so proud of at the time. The following year, I continued to do all of those things that I was doing before. I also started adding events into my business. So teaching in-person workshops was such a hot thing in 2016. And I remember I did one in January. The first two sold out like that, and it was so much fun. And I continued to do them throughout the rest of the year. And I also did my very first live art event in June for a clothing line. And then I got invited to a birthday party after that. It was for a celebrity. And I did about 6 events that year outside of the workshops. So that year I made $31,000. So a big jump from $5,000. Then 2017, most of my income that year was made through commissions. I started really specializing in watercolor portraits. So I did bust up portraits, full body portraits, faceless portraits, portraits with facial expressions. I also did wedding invitations. I stopped doing pop-ups at this time because it was a lot. And I actually think that I stopped doing my cards and prints during that time as well. So I kind of stepped away from doing wholesale orders and having an Etsy shop and really focused on commission work. I also started focusing on in-person events. I did about 10 workshops and 8 live art events that year. And I also did my first online course, which was a collaborative venture with multiple artists. And that year I did 56,000. So a little under double. And then 2018 was my first year hitting 6 figures, which was so exciting. Live art really started to grow during this time, and I think I did around 40 or 50 events that year. I was still doing wedding invitations and commissions and really focusing on that. I had added on linen banners for backdrops. I did calligraphy, and I was doing that full-time Monday through Friday. And then I was doing live art events, weddings, birthday parties, corporate events on Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So I was working 7 days a week. I'm not gonna lie, it took a toll on my health and my body. I broke out a ton all over my face. And I remember I would get these nausea spells where I would feel kind of faint. So overall, I realized that I needed to change some things because even though I was happy about hitting 6 figures, I was not happy about how I got there. So in 2019, I started to really double down on live art events. I started taking way less commissions. I felt like it was taking a lot of my time to email back and forth with the clients, especially on things like wedding invitations that required months of work, whereas live events, I would just show up for a few hours, do the event, and then when I'm done, I'm fully done, and I would have made the same amount of money or sometimes even more than what I would have made in those commissions that I worked months for. So I decided to really double down on that. I also realized that I love doing in-person events. So I actually co-hosted an in-person conference for the Modern Creative Podcast with my biz bestie Joyce, and that was such a blast. That year I ended up getting pregnant as well. So I was really looking forward into what my business would look like and how I can continue to work smarter and not harder. And then 2020 happened. We all know what went down that year. Before the world shut down, I was simply a business owner, artist, who was preparing to have my first child. So for my maternity leave, I wanted to launch an online course because I wanted to create something that would continue to serve and sell without me having to be on the whole time. So I created my first course called the Watercolor Portrait Course. I didn't know it at the time, but it ended up being my saving grace and the best thing I could have done for my business that year. So I did that, and as you know, the pandemic shut down. So really, most of my business that year was my course. And I did take on some commissions, but overall, I think it was a really great time to launch a course because everybody was at home, there were no events happening, the world shut down, and people just wanted to have a creative hobby. So watercolor portraits was one of the ways that they found comfort and joy. On a personal note, I also had big life changes, including having my son and moving across the country from California to Tennessee. 2021, the pandemic continued, and for the first 6 months, we did not do any events, but we started to do events again, continue to do online courses, and I also did some content creating. That's when I started to partner with brands and create content with them. It was actually such a fun thing to do, especially as a new mom and someone who had really so many life changes that was happening that year, living in a new state and having a totally different work schedule. I think it was such a fun time to do that. In 2022, I continued to do more content creating, and kind of like I mentioned in the very beginning, I really feel like these last few years after having my son, 2020 and beyond, my shift has really focused from growing my business to maintaining my business, pursuing the things that I actually really enjoy the most, and prioritizing those things. So for me, that is live art and doing events that bring me joy, and also doing online courses. In 2023, I did my first mini course, which is the Portrait Protocol. This is for people who already know how to do watercolor painting, but they don't know how to do figure drawing. And then in 2025, I did my big course, which is called Art Biz, and this is teaching other artists how to grow their own live art business. This is the first time I launched the course teaching all things business, creating systems, creating email templates, how to deliver an excellent experience, how to attract your ideal clients. All the things are in this meaty, juicy course. So that is what my life has looked like in the first 5 years of my business and the second 5 years of my business. The first 5 years were really about putting my name out there, growing my business, seeing which income streams brought the most revenue, really focusing on growth. And the second half, the last 5 years, has been really about pursuing the things that really light me up, that I think I really thrive in, and finding work-life balance as a full-time mom and a full-time artist. I hope this gave you a little sneak peek into what a life of a professional artist looks like, whether you are in the growing season of putting yourself out there or maintaining season and really learning how to save your best yeses. All the seasons are beautiful and wonderful, and no matter where you're at, I hope that my story resonated with you and made you feel less alone if you are in this place. I know that it can be hard to grow your business, especially when those around you don't really understand what you're doing. Growing a business can feel a little bit lonely at times, but it is so worth it. And over time, you end up linking arms with people who totally understand you. Having a community around you is so important. So if you are an artist, whether you are in the beginning stages of figuring things out, learning how to grow your business, or you are more seasoned, drop your Instagram handle down below, and I hope to stay connected. I hope you enjoyed reflecting on the last 10 years of my business with me. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.